Thomas goes fishing. Thomas's branch line has a station by a river. As he rumbles over the bridge, he often sees people fishing. Sometimes they stand quietly by their lines. Sometimes they actually jerk fish out of the water. Thomas often wanted to stay and watch, but his driver said, "No, Thomas. What would the fat controller say if we were late? Thomas thought it would be lovely to stop by the river. "I should like to go fishing." Every time he met another engine, he would say, "I should like to go fishing." They all answered, "Ha! Engines don't go fishing, sure." But that made Thomas impatient, and he would say, "Ha! Silly stick in the muds." Thomas generally had to take in water at the station by the river. One day he stopped as usual, and his fireman put the pipe from the water tower into his tank. Then he turned the tap on, but it was out of order and no water came. Thomas said to his driver, "Oh, bother! Oh, bother! Oh, I am thirsty." "Oh, never mind, Thomas. We'll get some water from the river." They found a bucket and some rope and went to the bridge. Then the driver let the bucket down to the water. The bucket was old and had 5 holes in it, so they had to fill it, pull it up, and empty it into Thomas's tank as quickly as they could. Thomas's fireman sang, "There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza." But the driver said, "Never mind about Liza. You empty that bucket before you spill the water over me. Go on." At last they finished, and Thomas started off. "Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good. Shh, shh, that's good." And Annie and Clarabelle ran happily behind. "That's very much better. That's very much better. That's very much better. That's very much better." They puffed along the valley and were in the tunnel when Thomas began to feel a pain in his boiler, while steam hissed from his safety valve in an alarming way. Thomas's driver said, "Oh, there's too much steam." And the fireman opened the tap in the feed pipe to let more water into the boiler, but none came. Thomas groaned. Oh dear, oh dear, I'm going to burst. I'm going to burst." They damped down his fire and struggled on, but Thomas was in a terrible state. "I've got such a pain. I've got such a pain." Just outside the last station, they stopped, uncoupled Annie and Clarabelle, and ran Thomas, who was still hissing fit to burst, onto a siding right out of the way. Then, while the guard telephoned for an engine inspector and the fireman was putting out the fire, the driver wrote notices in large letters, which he hung on Thomas in front and behind. "Danger. Keep away." Soon the inspector and the fat controller arrived.
"Oh, cheer up, Thomas. We'll soon put you right. Yes."
The driver told them what had happened, and the inspector said,
Oh, so the feed pipe is blocked, eh? Well, I'll just look in the tanks."
He climbed up and peered in. Then he came down and said to the fat controller,
Excuse me, sir, but look in the tank, will you, and tell me what you can see." "Oh, yes, certainly, Inspector. Certainly.
He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise.
Well, I never, Inspector. Can you see fish? Goodness gracious me. How did the fish get in there, driver?
Thomas's driver scratched his head.
We must have fished them from the river.
And he told them about the bucket. The fat controller laughed.
Well, Thomas, oh dear, so you and your driver have been fishing, eh? But fish don't suit you, do they? No, we must get them out.
So the driver and the fireman fetched rods and nets, and they all took turns at fishing in Thomas's tank. When they'd caught all the fish, the station master gave them some potatoes. The driver borrowed a frying pan, while the fireman made a fire beside the line and did the cooking. Then they all had a lovely picnic supper of fish and chips. The fat controller finished first.
Yes. That was good. Very good indeed. But fish don't suit you, Thomas, do they? So you mustn't do it again.
And Thomas said, "No, sir, I won't. Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable."